Welcome everyone to BatShtCrazy. Oh, there's something wrong. Oh, but there's something really right. Kathleen
Oh, there's
Kennedy is
something.
gone from Lucasfilm.
She's
Well, not yet, but she will be
leaving.
gone. She
She's
is making her
departing,
exodus, and
and
we are all clapping triumphantly. It's
she
finally
is
happening.
becoming one with the cosmic force. And why do I pick the cosmic force? Because the cosmic force is so far removed from the regular force, and it's a good thing. She's moving on, greater things. She can no longer hurt our Star Wars universe.
Thank God. So we are some of the biggest Star Wars fans around, and Kathleen Kennedy has single-handedly tried to snuff our light hard over the years. We've tried so hard to stay.
Bad choices.
She
Bad
just kept
choices made for the
one
sake
after
of
another.
money.
You could run
Yeah,
down the whole
bad,
list of shows and movies she's produced. Everybody's Force
I can.
Awakens on down.
I
We
can
can
actually.
do it right now. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, let's start with movies.
Please do.
We're gonna go with movies. So she is responsible movie-wise. The Force Awakens, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Last Jedi, Solo, Rise of Skywalker, which those are the movies that have come out since the Disney takeover. But she also gets the credit for TV shows. So The Mandalorian, Star Wars Visions, The Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, Star Wars Ahsoka, The Acolyte, and the most recent was Skeleton Crew. Um, so a long list,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it is shows that we have is, I mean, that trilogy, the sequel trilogy. What can we say about the sequel trilogy?
Well, let's just sum that up with saying let's just get rid of it. Let's pretend it did not exist. In my head, it is not
Right.
canon. I've totally removed that from my brain. I moved on. There was not hardly any redeeming
Right.
qualities from that. You can pick
And
some
we've talked
characters that were
about this
cool, but
we've talked about this
no.
before, how the characters exactly, like, there are some character I would keep a lot of the characters. I would alter them. For example, I think the biggest change either one of us would make, and we chatted about this, is the Ben Solo. I would have made him the hero of the story. I would have made Ray Palpatine the villain of the story,
Yes,
and it would have been a redemption arc for her, and we would have
exactly.
gotten to see Luke treated correctly. Uh, it blows my mind that while we had these movies going on, Dice gave us like a 12-hour mini campaign for Battlefront 2, and they treated Luke better than the movie did. It blows my mind. I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, the mistreatment of Luke alone should just get those movies removed from canon. That blows my mind. They 180'd his character.
They sure did. And lightsaber battles, terrible. Just everything was backwards in those movies. They just, I don't know. I'm not sure how someone could come up with. And Snoke, a whole lead up to a great villain that potentially
Oh,
that they just throw
could have
away
been
like a
could have
afterthought.
been could have been Darth Plagueis. Could have
Switching
been.
directors throughout, even if you don't like J.J. Abrams or Ryan Johnson, you have to roll with the same director. You can't be switching ideas mid movies because it just doesn't
Or
work. Or you can't have a guy come in and
or
throw the whole
at the
thing out.
very least, you should have had everybody on the same page. You shouldn't have been writing these as they went. You shouldn't have had
Yeah.
someone come in. I mean, JJ did the first and third film. Ryan Johnson did the second one, and they were two. It was like watching. I mean, comparatively, it's like watching James Gunn and Zack Snyder swap in and swipe out. It
Yeah.
was two completely different styles, two completely different directions with the same story.
Yeah, and
Um,
it didn't make there was no cohesion. It was clear Ryan Johnson wanted to do his own thing, and they tried bringing
mhm.
JJ back, and he tried to roll back everything he did in the first movie, and it was just like, what are you guys doing? It was
And
just
the craziest part about it is in Last Jedi, like the fundamental differences, the on record public appearance interviews that Mark Hamill gave before the movie even came out, saying, I did my best with what I had, but I fundamentally disagree with how they treated the character of Luke. And like, you got the guy saying that. I mean, I think the only person that had more right to the character, I know he feels the fans have the right, but like if someone's going to say it, it's going to be George Lucas or it's going to be the actor that played Luke for so long. And I just that blows my mind that the director was like, "No, no, I hear what you're saying, and even though you're the expert, we're going to do things my way." It just doesn't. Ah,
Yeah,
that's the biggest crime.
time mismanagement was terrible in those movies. Like The Hill, we've been over this whole casino escapade. No reason to be in that movie. They went that whole
Nope.
30 minutes without accomplishing one thing. They ended up back in the same exact situation they left in. And that whole time could have been used for Luke and Ray training, anything else, really.
Hmm.
And yet,
Like if if
I
if
don't
they
know.
wanted to stick with the direction they went, they could have substitute. Like, and I understand they wanted to give the character Rose more screen time, and I know they wanted to give Finn more screen time, and uh, that's great. But it didn't make any sense because for some reason, story wise, Admiral Holdo didn't want to tell Poe the plan. Poe,
Yeah.
in canon, unknown hothead. Poe, who they just said, I want to get an X-wing and blow stuff up. You know, he doesn't sit still for long. He's a guy that takes matters into his own hands in the story. You've set him up to be that way. And you're not going to be like, sit down, Poe. We have a plan. Instead, he does what his character does and takes off. She would have just said, "Hey, we're going to let the fleet sail off into the stars, get blown up. We're going to sneak down onto the planet. There's an old rebel base there. Boom." Completely, not only just this movie, but the next movie would have been completely changed.
You could have had a
It
growing
just it
moment for Poe in that whole scene. You could have said, you
yes.
need to step up and show leadership now because I'm going to run this ship into hyperspace and blow myself to smithereens. And it's your job now to take command of this unit and had that whole deal. But no, we're just going to act like he's a child and I'm not going to tell you anything. I
And
don't,
then you have Luke who decided I'm just, the most optimistic person in the galaxy was just like, nope, things got hard. I could see the goodness in my father who murdered people for 20 years. He killed everybody. He destroyed the Jedi Order. I found goodness in him and I found a way to redeem him. But my nephew had a bad dream, so it's time to cut that off. And
that was
and
the
then
worst,
that didn't
worst thing.
that didn't work out so well. I guess I better go exile myself and die alone on an island. It didn't make any sense. And so yeah, she gets the credit for that. She greenlit that. But like in addition to what else Kathleen Kennedy did, let's talk about the editing decisions in some of these TV shows.
Yeah,
Which
we
one do you
can.
want to open up with? Boba
Well,
or Kenobi?
I think the most egregious to the editing is Kenobi. And
Kenobi.
it seems like I it baffles me because there's YouTubers that can do. I am confident I could do a better job editing those shows, which is crazy because I suck at it, and yet I don't know who's doing this or who's making these cuts. But the best example in Kenobi would be Reva, our dearest Reva, jumping on the
Oh dear, Reva.
rooftops. She
Yeah,
is
yeah, her 5 minute
moving.
Assassin's Creed tryout.
Somehow she's hurtling, but yet not moving anywhere. And these cuts are so bad that Kenobi makes it. He's standing there, and she's right behind him, but yet 3 minutes behind him now. I don't know. The editing was like that was the worst in Kenobi was editing, and the show was bad to begin with. There was not much that could save that show really as it was constructed, but the editing was a
Yeah.
sin, and it's the same in Ahsoka. You can. There's a lot of that in Ahsoka too.
So I will say in defense of Kenobi, and this is the only time I'm going to defend it. Really is the Kenobi Leia story. I liked. I like the concept of it. I like because again we get to the sequel trilogy and Leia names her son Ben, right? And to our knowledge, she never met General Obi-Wan Kenobi. She was the hologram in Episode 4, but they never got any screen time together. So it was nice to have like some context to why she would name her son
Uh,
Ben. And I
Real
like
quick,
the idea that
don't move.
Obi-Wan.
Don't move off your point. I agree with you, but also, do you wish she was older?
No,
Really? Because I think that would be
my
more impactful
really.
if she was like 10, 12. So then you could say she's got a really good memory of Ben instead of however old she is here. I would have like a preteen teen, I think would have been maybe more compelling for her
Well,
attitude and stuff. We're acting older than she was, but I can see where you're going with that too. But
well, here's my kind of view on that. Again, from just like the scope of how it works with the story is, you know, my kid's 11, and my kid attaches himself to heroes, and they take on a mystic persona in his young 11-year-old mind. And so her being 10 at the time of the series, her only memory of Ben Kenobi before what Luke tells her, her only memory of him is he was some wise old man that came out of a super secret hiding mission, who her parents probably talked him up after he left, right? And he came out of nowhere and he saved her. And not only did he save her, he gave her a glimpse as to who Padme and Anakin were before, the ending events of episode 3. And so in my mind, I don't know if it'd be a great enough reason to, 20 years later name your kid after him, but I can see how that wanting to honor him in that way would be relevant,
I think
especially after what
conceptually
Luke had said.
yours makes a lot of sense and maybe more of a book form. I think the only reason I was thinking more older for the show would be for actor purposes and that they could get somebody that
I
was a little
loved,
bit I get it. She was great for how her age and she's a great
yeah, I
actor,
loved her.
but I think they could have did more with the chase stuff, the
Well, again, that comes down
escapism
to the
and
editing.
yeah, I know that was terrible and they obviously anybody could have did a better job with that chase scene. That was one of the most I think that was one of the most hilarious things I've ever watched.
It was awful. It was absolute. I remember we watched it. We had a watch
We
party
sure
first 2
did.
episodes at my
Yeah.
house,
I was laughing.
and I remember looking at you, and you were looking at me, and we're at the end of the first episode. We're like, okay,
What?
what exactly? And I think it's the editing, and it's doubly confusing because with the last project they just did, Skeleton Crew is all about kids and Jude Law, and it's a pirate adventure. Which, okay, we'll get into that later. But like the editing for those kids, because they're all roughly the same age as that actress was. Characters may be different, but like the kids were all roughly like there was no hide and seek, let's play tag with a 6-year-old kind of vibe to that. Like it all comes down and back to the editing. There is a way for them to have made Leia run through those woods without looking like she was playing tag with her big brother.
Yeah.
It did not make sense why they chose somebody who makes more money than you and I will ever see, looked at that and they said, "Yep, that's what we want for this amazing series that fans have been, just absolutely thirsting
It
for
was
years
worse than
and
the
years and years and
CW.
years."
It was worse than
It,
CW quality. I don't
you're right.
understand it.
You're right.
Who passed
I
that?
it
Who watched that and
I
was
don't know,
like, that's
especially
okay?
especially because they made the decision. They said Kenobi was going to be a movie first.
Yep.
And then they changed their minds. They said, no, the story we want to tell is much bigger than a movie.
Which
We
I
want to
agreed
give
with
it,
that. We thought that was a great idea.
yeah, everybody did. They were like, we want to give this story 6 hours. It's basically going to be its own trilogy, but in a series kind of way. And so you'd think that they would have treated that a little better than like their baby sister, and not even baby sister broadcast company, because like you watch shows like 1923, or you watch shows like Arrow on the CW just because you threw CW out there, and like those shows don't look cheap. Like I don't understand who on the editing floor looked at Obi-Wan and Leia and said, "Nope, they need to find a way to go through this gate somehow instead of just walking around the rocks, the laser gate." There was a big O. It's like it's like when you laugh at the mall because there's
Yep.
clearly a door but the window's open or something. It's like somebody said that was a good idea. It's just like you said with Riva. You have an inquisitor who's full of rage. She's youthful. She's obviously powerful. fueled by the dark side. She's jumping across the rooftops like Assassin's Creed, and she gets nowhere. She never even catches up to the guys that are shooting across. Like, they're not hiding. You got bolts of red and green flying past your head. Like, and they did shots where they saw like bird's eye view of the shootout on the rooftops, and like, how did she not catch them? And it's just strange editing decisions. But I don't feel like there was anything wrong with the story, and I don't think Ewan did anything wrong. The actors didn't do anything wrong. I think Reva could have been a fun character had they not chosen to ruin the show with her. And I think
So I disagree with you a little bit. I think the story
okay,
was a problem. I I think you'll agree with me because we've already had this conversation before. The entire premise of the show is Obi-Wan is in hiding, does not train, lost his touch to the Force, blah blah blah, is exaggeratingly weak throughout the entire
yeah.
beginning of the show. They make a point to make it shown that he can't do crap anymore. And then all of a sudden he at the end is now beyond anything he's ever been and arguably beating the strongest being in the universe, maybe second strongest, but it's that was a problem. I thought they always should have done the route where he had been training the entire time and meditating and improving his
Learning to
skills,
talk to Qui-Gon.
which would have made the whole show seamless and would have made more sense as yeah, I'll leave, I'll go help you because I'm trained, I'm a badass still. And
I'm still a Jedi
yeah, I'm still
member,
a
or
Jedi.
Jedi Master, member of the High Council, one
Yeah.
of the last surviving members of the High Council.
Which he seemed
I'm
like he
credited
wasn't
with
when he goes
beating
into hiding. He
the
never
Sith.
said like, I don't want I'm renouncing this. He's like, okay, yeah, we'll do this. I'm still gonna act like a Jedi. And then all of a sudden we
Yeah.
waste 3 episodes of this whole show trying to show that he's pathetic when they wasted so much time in this show. It was like I remember being 3 episodes in and out of 6 or whatever it was, and I was like, we're not getting anywhere in this show. As I remember telling you, I was like, they're running
Well,
out of time.
and that's the thing too. Again, it comes back. I know we're trying to dog on the story, but again, once again, it comes back to the editing because, like, he confronts Darth Vader for the first time, and what have you become? I am what you made me. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll run away now. And
That was
so, and then
hilarious.
somehow, and then somehow, even though he like straight booked it to get the hell out of there, right? Even though he did that, Vader still somehow managed to like. I just imagine Vader hit the mute button on his little box and sprinted his little
Oh
butt.
wait, don't forget the double ships. You'll never know the second ship is behind the first one.
We're
That's
getting
so
there. Yeah,
stupid.
no,
What?
but no, we're not at that level of
Oh, we're not?
stupid yet
Okay.
because no, we're not
Get me
there
there.
yet
Get me
because
there.
at the I'm stay tuned, man. So at the end of the first conflict, we just watched like Vader's got Obi-Wan in the flames and he knocks
So
things
cool,
over,
by
he
the
lights
way.
things on.
Love that moment.
It, that was such a cool moment, and it is immediately ruined because one sniper distracts an entire like platoon of stormtroopers who's with Vader. They're probably the 501st, or they're no joke at least because they're with Vader, and so he's he's got Obi-Wan where he wants him. He's burning him. He's raking him through the coals. One sniper takes a shot at like 12 guys, and Vader's just like, "Oh, I guess he's gone." And like at first you're like, why did he let him get away? Why did he let him get away? And then you see him the next time you see him, he's all pissy because Obi-Wan got away. You're like,
I know. It was
you
like
just put the fire out a second ago. What are you doing? You,
I remember
you
people
let him
trying to
go.
like
Why are you
save
mad?
this show. People were online going like, he let him go because he knew he was defeated. I was like, what? He even said he was
And
pissed about it. It's
why was
like
he so angry the next time we saw him away?
he played
He's
Jedi
ready to
Fallen
choke
Order and
the
he's like wrecking the room. Yeah, he like can't get him across the flames though, and he gets distracted. He's like, he's gone.
Yeah,
What was
so you
me?
have that editing. You have
Oh
that
wait,
editing
wait,
mess,
wait.
and
Can we
then
back up one moment? Can we go back to when they
yes,
first see each other in that interaction? He ignites his lightsaber, Obi-Wan does. Then he just runs away.
he's like,
It was great.
nope.
He just like turns. He's like what I would do. He's like, I'm gonna run away. Then
I
Vader's
got
just
it.
like, where are you
Gotta
going?
go. But
Vader was ready to
no,
fight.
seriously. Seriously, is nobody considering? Is nobody thinking about like? And I don't see enough of people talking about this online. It's like we are way willing to forgive this one, but like, how did Vader get ahead of him?
I don't know. It's like, remember we talked about that? We imagined him rocking. He's booking it.
It's just his cape and his little skirts flying in the background. His knees are in agony because robot joints. Yeah,
And he gets over.
how did he get? He's like he calms himself real quick. He composes himself. He catches his breath, and then he's like, "Okay, breathe mode." It's the button.
just like
And
in
like I
Rogue
know
One, whenever he's like, "Do you remember when he
somebody's
turned off
gonna be
all of his
like,
equipment just for dramatic effect?"
so somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, he used the Force to sustain him." Okay, let's talk about the end of the show. No, we'll get there because hot off the heels that awesome fight between him and Reva, which I actually really enjoyed that
I
fight
did
between
enjoy
him
that
and
one.
Reva.
That was cool. I like
Uh,
the not even igniting a lightsaber. That was pretty baller.
oh yeah, he's like, I'm not even gonna deign to use my. You're not worth
Yeah.
my
I kind
lightsaber.
of like the John Wick style they did with it too, where it was sort of not super fast, but kind of fast. That was kind of cool. I actually did enjoy
Yeah,
that.
you know, and it was really cool to see him kind of give into the because like a lot of the one of the good things Disney's done as they've added a lot of montages of Jedi training. And so you see like the Jedi conduct martial arts training and you see it's sprinkled throughout the prequels too, the way Obi-Wan fights Jango, the way he fights Grievous, or even in the Clone Wars, especially in the Clone Wars, they use a lot of martial arts in the Clone Wars. So it was kind of fun to see him go back and use his skills just like martial arts wise, force ability wise. And now I'm done playing. I'm going to use your lightsaber to beat you. That was awesome. And then again, no, it was right before this that it happened. That he's like, the first ship goes and he has that badass moment where he
That was
catches it
super
in the
cool.
air
I was like,
and he
okay,
brings it down and he's doing it one-handed like Star Killer from Force Unleashed. And you're like,
yep,
yes, I've been waiting so long to
yep.
see this. And then he tears it apart like, oh, Prime Vader, here we go. And then he watches the second one go. Like he could have just been like, "Oh, no, you don't," and caught that one too. But he was just like, "Oh, well,
I just like that. That
I
was
guess
their
I'm
plan.
tired."
We're just gonna hide.
It was,
It's gonna be a second ship.
yeah,
Reva should have
but it
died
was
there
just like
though. That's where she should have been killed, and it ended her
Reva should
story
have died there.
because she
Yeah,
detracted. We'll
it
get
would have
to it
been.
later, but she detracted from the whole end of the show so badly that it ruined the ending. Because
It would have.
if you watch the normal version of this show, when it cuts from that last fight to her, ruins all momentum. But you people forget about it
It
because you just watch the edited
does.
version on YouTube where it's like all one clip. But you watch that thing live, it's like 10 minutes of her just going, "Oh, Luke,"
Yeah.
and then it's like,
The
"What? Don't put me back in the other fight. I don't want to see this."
Again, it comes back to that editing decision that was officially passed off and blessed off by. Like half of me wonders, I'm like, either Kathleen Kennedy either hates Star Wars or she didn't actually watch it because like you promised fans, and I
Probably
think, and
both.
I wonder how often people are upset over content or broken promises because they promised the grudge match of the century. And like you said, when we get to the end of the show and it's Obi-Wan versus Vader, they both got their powers back. That's a great fight when you watch the fan edit and it's pieced together
I
and
still
it's
have a problem with it,
fantastic.
but we'll get to that. But
And, it's
I
just,
just
I
thought of this
love
right
that fight.
now. This literally just came to me right now. What if instead of cutting to Riva with Luke, somehow I don't know how this would happen, but somehow instead of so you have a Kenobi Vader fight going on, then you cut to Riva versus the Grand Inquisitor, and it's they're fighting. And you do a back and forth, different two fights going on, kind of like they did in the Revenge of the Sith, where you have Obi-Wan with
Mm-hmm.
Anakin and then Yoda with Palpatine, and you do a back and forth
Mm-hmm.
between the Inquisitor fighting Riva, and then Riva gets killed or something. I don't know. And
That would
then
have that would have been
that
an
would have been
awesome
cool.
callback. But the choice to keep her alive and to leave her story open is baffling. And the choice they made, editing wise, to cut away from our grudge match of the century, what they sold fans on for the series,
I guess we
to
might as well just
watch
skip
a
to that.
wounded Riva chase Luke through the desert. Like it was pointless because I know Luke's going to be okay.
Yep.
Nothing bad's gonna
Exactly.
happen
There
to him.
was no
He
tension in that
he
moment.
makes it he makes it to episode 4 completely oblivious to the things going on the galactic scale, the Civil War. He makes it to episode 4 unscathed, all of his limbs attached, not even a scar over his eye. You know, he is a fresh young hero's journey by the time we see him in episode 4.
Yeah.
And it makes it to episode 5. It makes it to episode 6, and it gets all the way to episode 8 until somebody decided that the way Luke Skywalker was going to die was an OD on the Force.
Let's not
So
even retread that.
that editing decision was made by Kathleen Kennedy.
So let's jump right to this final fight.
Yeah,
So
I loved it.
I mean, so if you just take away what I hate about the whole story as I like his abilities to the Force, suddenly becoming supercharged. I don't like any of that, but I'm gonna throw that aside for now and just go with the. I'm in my mind. He's been training the whole time, and that's where this fight is in my brain. I've just made it canon in my own way. So in that angle, it's a good fight. Up until the end, I think what they should have done when he gets his helmet cut off and they have the whole conversation, which is brilliant. That was some of the best acting, I think, in Star Wars. After that moment, when he comes back, I don't know how they would have made Kenobi escape. That's a difference there. I don't need you could easily make something up. I would have had Vader turn it all on there and go full evil and like you said, use the Force to bring his body to new limits and just unleash hell on Kenobi that he can't fight back to. He's stronger than him, and it's clear because he should be by all canonical measures. And even if I've seen people try to say, well, he wasn't in the suit very long, and he should be wrecking
He's
him.
in the
And
suit for 10 years.
he should be wrecking him, and there's no way he shouldn't. Like Kenobi, even if he was training, I don't think would light a candle to him. Maybe at least to be evenly matched, but they should have made that Vader's moment where it's like all that conflict and maybe he had during the fight with Kenobi still being alive and stuff was just gone, and he was completely just evil monster now. And he just, I would have loved to see that where he just kind of went at him with full hatred. And
Yeah,
I don't know
and
how you would make him escape. I mean, there had to be some kind of like, I don't know, maybe somebody ship shows up and starts shooting at Vader with blasters off the ship or something, and Kenobi jumps on
right,
it and gets out of there.
something to explain why. So
Yeah.
let me amend what I love the fight. I hate the conclusion. It, like you said, it doesn't make sense, especially because Disney and Marvel have gone ahead and said that the comics that run, you know, kind of parallel to the what we see on screen, big and small, are canon. We've straight up seen what Vader went through earlier on, like right after he got the suit, in order to like get his own lightsaber to bleed the crystal too. And there's no reason getting his box and his helmet cracked would have disabled him that much. And that's not even an editing issue. It's just like
Well, even
pure
besides
and
the fact
simple.
that
They
he let that
weren't paying attention to the
Kenobi
story.
lets Vader live again. That's the other biggest thing. It's like the first time, sure, you can kind of understand it because he looked like he was going to be dead, and you don't want to kill him.
Why?
So sure, but now
Why?
it's
Well, in the
you can't say my
novelization,
friend is
he
dead.
says it.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah,
my friend is
he thought
gone.
Vader died.
Yeah, and
He
then
had
even
no
now,
idea Vader survived.
it's all your fault. Essentially, what this show was proving is that the entirety of Star Wars history after that is your fault, Kenobi, because you did not kill him when you had the chance
It was
again.
like a scene where I don't even know, like where brothers fight in the street and they just like punch each other in the face over and over again, and then they remember that they, you know, laugh about it lying down in the mud while it rains or something. Except this is not that. Vader is fueled by hatred, and Vader would have been dismissively pissed that Obi-Wan would have beat him again, and that would have sent him into overdrive. And like the in my mind, the only way, not that I wanted to change, because like you said, that dialogue at the end was beautiful in every way, but there is no way Kenobi should have lived, and there is no way that he should have let Vader live. I don't understand why they let each other walk away. And
And
I think that's just
that's
them
where
not
my
paying
idea
attention to
of
their
it
own canon.
That's where my idea of the show would make sense if during that moment when he says Anakin Skywalker's dead or whatever, I killed him, and then he just gets this surge of dark energy that just overcomes Kenobi
Yeah,
easily, and Kenobi is forced to escape. That would make sense as to why he decided from then on, I got to just stay in hiding because I can't beat this guy.
yeah.
But instead
No, and in
it
that
makes
moment,
Kenobi look like the fool. It makes him look like you're the guy that let him live twice now, and he even said in the
yeah,
second one, "I don't know you anymore. You're dead to me. So I'm just going to let you live and then kill people, thousands of people." He even but the whole
yeah.
show is watching Vader kill these Jedi that are in hiding and hunting them down, and Kenobi
Hmm.
sympathizes with them and is helping them. But then you cause the problem again by you're just letting them go back to being hunted. It's like, what are you doing? That's why I was
Yeah,
like, I
no,
don't understand.
you're right.
I don't understand.
I that's a decision that was
And I'm
made
surprised more people
under
didn't talk about
Miss
that fact.
Kennedy.
I didn't see that a whole lot online. I saw a lot of people not like the show, but I didn't see a lot of people say he flat out let him live twice
Yeah,
now. It's like that seems like a
it's
major plot point.
it is baffling for sure.
So,
I don't
into Kenobi
understand it. And
season 2, what would you want to see?
yeah, so should you well, I would say
Is there a
even
season 2?
should we should we there's lots of talk about it. No, nothing's confirmed. I think they're testing the waters, honestly. Should there be a Kenobi season 2? Should there be another rematch? Should a different team come on board to try to make sense of the debacle that was? I don't think so. I think they should just let it be, let it
I did
fade
too.
into the background, let the fan edits rule YouTube, and let it just slip away. That's what I think they should do.
If
But
if you're forced to watch something, what would you do? If there's no choice but to have a season 2, what would you do with the story?
do you remember the Kenobi novel?
Mhm.
I would do that. Kenobi's in charge of his powers. Kenobi has the option to get off the planet and run away, live a life, even find love, adopt a family, to give up his charge. Luke was safe. Um, you know, by that point, Luke was very, very, very safe. If R2 and 3PO hadn't been looking for Obi-Wan, there would have been no reason because Bail sent Leia to Tatooine to find Obi-Wan. My father, all that whole monologue. If he wasn't there, Luke would have never been involved in the Empire. Uh, he would have been safe. Luke would have been safe. And so that whole story deals with Obi-Wan refusing to give up his charge, refusing to give up his mission, and to stay on board and to continue watching over Luke. And it's a very distinct choice. And so if they were ever going to do a season 2, I would say take that novel that you've removed from canon, reintroduce it, and give us the Kenobi everyone expected. There wasn't any conflict with Vader. He finds out at the end that Vader was alive, so you'd have to retcon that a little bit. Um, but just give Kenobi a mission where he never leaves Tatooine and he's just like helping these people because that's who he is. The Grand Inquisitor at the beginning of the first season had it right. The Jedi Code, it's like an itch. They can't help it. They are fundamentally good guys, even though the High Council was completely, bamboozled by the dark side at the end. And so, yeah, if you had to force me to pick something to watch, that would be it.
It's a nice idea. I like it.
But like, if just backtracking a little bit, going back to getting back on track to Kathleen and her departure and why it's a good thing. She's also, I mean, Kenobi's not the only thing she botched.
Oh.
She was also, I mean, let's talk about Book of Boba Fett
Oh
and
god.
her interference there. And let's talk about, I don't know if we should talk about Ahsoka. I'm not sure how much she had to do with that versus Rosario Dawson's performance versus Dave Filoni's different direction that he took his character. But let's
Yeah.
talk briefly about Book of Boba Fett. Again, it's is it people upset about the content or are people upset about the broken promise? Because I like the concept of the baddest Boba or bounty hunter in the galaxy surviving the Sarlacc pit, taking over Jabba the Hutt's criminal empire and being a crime boss. That sounds awesome. What we got was 2 episodes of Boba Fett, the introduction for Mando season 3, and a really great episode of Luke.
Yeah. That show was another mess. Some of it editing, once again, the entire flashback sequence should have just been the start of the show, tied all together, not coming in and out of back to tanks. It should have just been the start of the
One
show,
episode.
ran that whole thing up until the Sarlacc pit, and then that
Mm-hmm.
would have made sense. I don't know why they did it the way they did it. That was just confusing and just choppy. But that aside, the show was just he was too nice of a guy, and I don't think he's that good of an actor to hold that much talking. He had too much,
I don't know.
and I
I
think
love
they
him.
I do
I
love
don't agree
him,
with you there. I love him, but
but the more he talked, the weaker it got, and I think they realized that too, and that's why they started phasing him out with Mando. And I think once they started doing that, the show got better, but then it just became Mandalorian. And I think there's a way to get him. I think his best work is when he's just not talking much. He's very quick and to the point and very dickish almost and standoffish. But then when they tried to give him these long monologues and him talking too much, he started kind of, I don't know, showing that he's not, maybe doesn't have the best acting chops. He's just kind of a one, which is fine. He just kind of has this one voice and it doesn't really hold a whole lot up and down here. And I, he just became too nice of a guy. The Cad Bane thing should have been more of a story arc. I would have liked to
oh,
see way more of
I
him.
loved that. I loved that they brought Cad Bane into live action, and that was handled so well because that is always when you watch the Clone Wars, knowing what you know about who Boba Fett's gonna be, and seeing Cad Bane just kind of run the show during that time period, like seeing those two meet up and fight is something I only thought I'd ever see either in a comic book or in a video game. And seeing it on like that part for me didn't disappoint, except there wasn't enough of it.
I wish the whole show was more of a him being a bounty hunter again and going after somebody specific. Maybe Cad Bane. I don't know. I would have liked to see him work and do more of bounty hunter stuff, like going on a cool planet, some crazy ship battles, some planet excursions, fighting some local fauna and local crazy stuff, and then maybe a showdown with
Yeah,
Cad Bane. Like maybe that's the ultimate bounties he's trying to get Cat.
I would
I don't
have.
like this whole like I'm a lord now of this city. I didn't like any of that. I just wanted him to be a bounty hunter.
I didn't like the lack of violence
Yeah.
because this is a character who is supposed to be just ruthless,
I wanted more
and he was
Django.
letting people.
I wanted what
He was
Django
letting
was in
people
the
live, and
prequels.
he was letting people live. He was trying to be the diplomat. He was trying to be Michael Corleone. I wanted to see Sonny, and it was Godfather reference for all the young people out there. Uh, I don't know. It's just, and then the decision they made, they're like, oh well, our show's not doing so hot. We better bring in the Mando, or I wasn't even upset to see Luke. It's just, why did you do Mando in a Luke arc during a Boba Fett show? It was that
Yeah.
decision that ultimately passed Kathleen Kennedy's desk. They did not give Boba Fett what they should have given Boba Fett, and
To their
that like,
credit, I will say that's the first time I think somebody's actually watched the show through and was like, "This isn't working." Because it seems
yeah,
like every other show they have the same problems and they just keep steamrolling ahead. But this one, it seems like they got because I think everybody kind of felt the same way. They got 3 episodes in, they're like, "What is this show going to take off
what is
here?" And
happening? Yeah.
then at the suddenly they throw Mando in there. It's like, oh, there we go. Now we got some splashy
Well,
splash.
and that's what exactly what happened was you get to the end of that third episode or whatever whichever one it was, and you're like, Oh, I see what they're doing. Oh, this is gonna be he's gathered his crime allies. They're about to steamroll Tatooine, and this is gonna be a mafia show in space. This is gonna be awesome. And then we got Mando, which
What was the
I loved
coolest part
seeing
of Boba
Mando.
Fett? Like you think of Boba Fett and you think of that teaser scene where he's beating stormtroopers in the head with his staff and he's got a cloak
Yeah.
on. That was the best part of the
Oh,
whole
and
show. Yeah, and was that
that's when
in
when
Mando?
he came into Mando. Yeah, that
Yeah,
came in Mando season two
that's the
when they
best part.
introduced
That's
him.
all I want out of my Boba Fett is to beat
He
people up
was
with a stick.
so violent.
Yeah, and then you get none of
Yeah.
that. He just sits there and
No,
kind of sits on his throne and goes like, "I'm the head of this town now because I said so, and you're not gonna
I'm the
hurt my
Daimo.
people." And it's like, what? It all basically felt like that other guy that was the sheriff of the town, and he's suddenly like,
Yeah.
"I'm the sheriff now," and it's like, okay, I guess you're a bounty hunter, not a sheriff.
But I
It's
mean,
I don't know.
as mishandled as that show was, I still got to see Boba and Mando tear up a city Western style. That was cool. I still got to see Luke and Grogu training on whichever planet that was. That was cool. I got to
It's
see
cool.
Boba Fett riding a Rancor. That was cool.
Yeah,
But
it's
again,
not the worst show.
all those plot points that got, if you think about it, all the plot points that was set up in Boba Fett, he didn't solve any of them. It was all Mando.
Yeah, that's also true.
He did it. He was a side character in his own show, and Kathleen Kennedy said that was okay.
Yeah, and it's not the worst show in the world. It's definitely not one of the brighter points. It's very forgettable. But
Hmm.
I I guess we could almost what did Kathleen Kennedy do right? I guess we could that's probably easier question to say. And I guess Mandalorian's the easy one. That
Well,
obviously was a hit.
Mando was a John Favreau, and we all know how on the record he was about, hey, get the f out of my process.
Yeah.
So she had very little to do with that, which is why Mando was great. Same reason Andor was so fantastic. That was so
Andor
low on
is
her radar.
fantastic.
She didn't care. She wasn't about that one.
Is that Andy Serkis directing that? Or no?
I don't hold on, let
I
me
can't remember
look
who
at it
directed
real
that
quick.
show. I can't remember if that was the beginning of his directing stuff or not. But yeah, Andor, great show. Despite all odds. Honestly, I didn't have high hopes for that show. I was going into it
That
very
show
low
is so great.
expectations. But yeah, that was probably one of the best ones under her watch.
Have you seen the trailer for season 2 that just dropped yesterday, I
I
think?
I have them queued up. I haven't watched it yet though. I'm going to.
Okay.
How does it look?
I haven't
What's
watched it yet
what's
either.
oh good. We'll both be surprised together. I wonder where they're gonna take that
Yes.
show. Because I thought it had a pretty nice conclusion. I mean, they could obviously go more with it, but it wasn't one like you needed more. I kind of worry
So,
that might be too much of it, but we'll see.
so I guess that's another thing that happened under her watch that I actually enjoyed was the conclusion to Andor, where it all ends up is Rogue One, and I know we feel differently about it. But the score by Michael Giacchino is a standout score for me.
What do we feel
Who's the
different
director?
about? Rogue One?
Rogue One. Yeah. Um,
What's your take on it?
I thought, as far as independent Star Wars stories go outside of the Skywalker saga, that is probably the best one. And for me, Star Wars movies wise, like overall, that's probably top four.
What
Um,
what are other independent stuff you could say?
so we have outside the
I'm trying
Skywalker
to think.
saga, so just movies, it's Rogue One and Solo.
Okay, well that's an easy win for Rogue One.
Yeah, it's an easy one for
Oh,
Rogue One.
Solo, that's a big miss. Rogue One
That was
is not
just
a bad movie. I actually don't hate Rogue One at all. I just don't
I
think
love
it's
Rogue One.
I I have to rewatch it again now, but it's not a bad movie. I just didn't think it was anything special except for the last minute and a half, which I think is what made
I
that
thought it
movie.
was
But I think we had this talk before is if you take that last minute and a half out of that movie, do you think it gets the same amount of critical buzz? I don't think it does. I think most people remember that movie for that last scene with Vader. But I think without it, it just kind of is like, yeah, it's a good movie. But I don't think I'd remember anything else about it other than they get blown up at the end. but
No,
that
actually,
moment was so
I disagree
iconic.
completely.
I think okay. Well, I think that's the ending scene was so iconic that it brings that
Oh,
movie
the
almost a
Vader
letter grade higher.
Vader's hallway scene is absolute. You're right. That does the movie justice. You get so much more out of that just because I mean, that's half the reason I want just a series or a movie that's 2 or 6 hours of Vader slaughtering rebels. I want that because of Rogue One. Absolutely. But when I think of Rogue One, I think of Mon Mothma had such a small line, many Bothans died to bring us this information. And they took that and they ran with it. They're like backstory now. And I love that they used elements, unused footage from episode 4 with the X-Wing pilots. I loved the planetary shields concept. I loved the Battle of Scarif on the beach with the shore troopers and the not the AT-ATs, whatever they're called, the walkers that are just basically troop characters. I loved that. Director Krennic, I thought, was probably the best bad guy they've introduced since Darth Vader and Palpatine. I
I did
loved
like him. He was good.
I loved the whole I love K2S2 as the droid for this. His sassy. I loved seeing Jeddah, the Empire, because that's the first time you really saw and I think it was like the foundation for probably the Jedi games. That's the first time you really saw like an Imperial occupied Jedi city or Jedi ruins. And I liked the construction of the Death Star and seeing it be put together. And even though the CGI wasn't great, I loved seeing Tarkin come back and just be so evil. I really like that movie for those elements, and I like Jyn Erso as a character. I think she's one of the better characters outside of the Skywalker saga. So yes, the Vader scene really kicks it up a letter grade, a whole letter grade for you.
I think I'm gonna
And
agree with you
Vader's
more the more I'm thinking about it. I think because
yeah.
at the time of that, we hadn't got all the monstrosities we have had since that point. And I think
Hmm.
in the context of what we've had since that movie, it's a great thing by comparison. So
Yeah,
I think I'll
no.
have to bump it up. I still think it was a little cliche, maybe was my problem. And I remember vividly at the end of that movie before Vader Kid did the hallway scene. I was so upset because I thought that was all the Vader we got was the Krennic choking thing. And I
Yeah.
was because they were
Careful
hyping
not
that
to
up
choke
so
on your
much. I didn't
aspirations.
have any spoilers going into that, and I was like, "Is that all we're getting? Is just that scene?" Because they were hyping it up like he's going to be in this movie. I was so angry, and then he finally did the hallway thing. I was like, "Okay, thank God." I was about to start
Yeah,
crying.
no,
The only time I got
I
emotional
would
in
have
my
been it
life.
was cool to see. Well, and that's the other thing that this movie did is it gave us Vader's castle on Mustafar.
That was cool.
That was this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a short list on what she did right. I know she
The
was
less she
not
dabbled, the
involved.
better generally.
That's exactly what it was. The less she tried to milk it for cash, the better it did. The more she stayed out of the process.
I'd say the whole Force
Uh,
Awakens trilogy was her biggest sin, but because really that was clear
I'm pretty stuck
commercial
in
cash
Kenobi,
grab.
but yeah.
Well, yeah, Kenobi just because I think of we finally got the actors to agree to do it, and it was like a once in a lifetime kind of stars line up kind of thing to make something great, and she ruined it. So yeah, I will agree that to us hardcore fan, I think that's the more atrocious
Yeah.
sin. But I think the movies are just a clear cash grab and trying to milk the franchise for those billions of dollars that they paid for it. And I, I don't know. I think they did so much damage that I still don't know if they can recover from it. I'm not quite sure. We'll see who they bring in. But is there any rumors about who they're bringing in?
I haven't seen anything yet. This news is still so fresh.
Assuming it's going to be
Maybe
in the
it's
suit,
just
but who knows? I
who
mean,
knows? Maybe they'll bring George back.
I
Yeah.
don't think we want that
Maybe
either.
uh, I I'm not sure. I mean,
I would have
anything's
said Filoni, but Ahsoka is scaring me that I don't know if he knows what he's doing in live action. I was so committed to the
that is
Dave
a good
thing, but
point.
I think he
I
might just be a great animated series guy. I don't know.
That might be and I adore Clone Wars and Rebels. I mean, you know that the boys and
We
I
both
we
do.
rewatched
Yeah.
that we
That's the
rewatch
best
that
Star Wars
frequently.
property.
And this goes back to 2 episodes ago. We talked about should they even continue in live action or should they move to mocap with animation and stuff like that. And Dave, he shines when it comes to these scenes. And like when I think about the Ahsoka show, I loved seeing his animated elements come to live action. I loved the Clone Wars flashbacks. I loved seeing true Prime Vader versus Ahsoka, and I liked seeing her smile, for crying out loud, because Ahsoka is overwhelmingly a good character that is happy
By all
and
regards, she's my favorite character. She's the most developed Star Wars
yeah.
character in history, as far as you've seen her grow up and her entire life. You see it all. There's no point where
Mhm.
we have a 10-15 year jump here.
You
It's pretty
really
much
do.
all right there.
No, you really do, because in Tales of the Jedi, you even get her when she's an infant, and Plo Koon finds her. Like
Very underrated series,
you
Tales of the
see.
Jedi.
Oh, I love that series, and the Sith one as well. If
Mhm.
you haven't watched it yet, you definitely should. But it's she's such a phenomenal character, and I understand the challenge of bringing her to live action. But like Rosario Dawson was able to make that transition in the last couple episodes when after her walk in the world between worlds with Anakin, she kind of comes back to what we know her from her in the Clone Wars. And I know the canological explanation behind it is after her confrontation with Vader right before Ezra pulls her into the world between worlds the first time, she's broken emotionally. She abandoned Sabine, which that was a thing. Okay. She abandoned Sabine and she just does her own thing for a while. She goes off looking for Thrawn for reasons. And it just was not believable that that was the same character because, and I don't know how much of this was the actress and how much of this was Dave's guidelines, because it's like you said, he shines in animation, but it doesn't translate to live action so well because I think there's just context that he's not providing that he otherwise would have been able to.
Yeah. Her character is, I think, only thrives in animated setting. It's just the speed, the technical skill just can't be really replicated by a person well. I mean, and they tried, but it just never looked fast enough. She always looked too slow. And I didn't like how weak the show made her because she
Yeah, yeah,
arguably
she should have been.
is one of the top 5 strongest people at this point, easily,
Oh yeah,
with her
if at this
accomplishments.
point,
You have
at
her
this point
going
especially, it's
toe to toe with Vader and arguably getting the upper hand
surviving.
on him. Yeah, even it was outside of the slip or whatever at the end there when he was just bearing down on her. She had the upper hand in that fight, and yet she struggles. It seems like in every single battle, except when she's fighting Anakin. That one seems to be finally where they started getting it right. But she struggles against all of them for some weird reason. It's like they just kind of make her stand around a lot and talk, and I don't know. I
Yeah,
That was kind
and,
of the
and
problem
like
with the show.
smile, damn,
But
smile,
at
come
no
on,
point in that
damn.
show though was I like I would like this being anime or live action more. Outside of actually seeing Hayden, I think that was cool. But outside of that, I the rest of it could have been animated to me and I would have been happier. I think it would have just been a better show.
I
And
think
that's
you're
kind of where I
right.
feel like I'm with Star Wars in general. Everything I watch is like this would have been just fine animated.
I thought the title character of that series was one of the weakest elements of that series. I didn't like a third, either or almost half really of that show. It did not click for me. It it
We
felt
disagree on Sabine. I don't like her at all. I can never connected with her in this show. The actress I felt was just very subpar that played her. No disrespect, but I
so.
she just never landed for me. I know you liked her more than me, but I from the get go, I just could not. Something about her was off to me, and I don't know. Ezra was
She
good. I liked
makes
Ezra.
sense. Ezra was perfect. No, she makes sense in the continuity they established. All the Force resides in all living beings, sort of thing, and she's a Mandalorian that honed her senses and honed her abilities And there was even you go back and watch Rebels, one of the later seasons after she gets the dark saber and Kanan's training her, there's indicators that yeah, potentially she could be a force wielder, but they just kind of jumped into it with this show with no real like it was a potential and then it was a fact and there was no bridge between the two. And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they'll go backwards and fix that with like a different version of Tales of the Jedi. So I know they're doing a lot of those mini episodes.
And that's
They have a lot of seasons
my
planned.
biggest pet peeve in all of really any kind of Star Wars or any show is lack of why something is. And I hate when Force users just become Force users. Like when you see prequels of training and Anakin fails so many times, and yet you see all this stuff where, oh, we're just going to do a cut. Now she's powerful. And it's like, I hate that. And this, the problem was Dave made this. And that's partly why I don't am concerned because he usually doesn't make mistakes like that. And he usually goes out of his way to show why something is. And I don't know if it was a lack of time. And that's where I do wonder if the live action is just something he's not going to be able to nail because it's like you only have 6, 7 episodes and he's used to having 30 episodes in a season to tell his
Yeah.
story. And I just think that there's a lot of obvious like time constraints that I'm sure he wants to tell a 15, 20 episode show, but they're only going to give him so much money. And that's where I don't know if he's going to be able to, or maybe it was never him. Maybe there was somebody else working on the Clone Wars that was just behind the scenes that nobody knows about that was really the one
Like
doing all the
a
stuff.
ghostwriter.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would hope he seems like he's a great Star Wars dude, and I still like him. I mean, just because you made one bad show doesn't mean you're doomed, but it definitely was concerning about his live. I was like, give him the reins to everything, all the live service. Let's give him the whole show. But now I'm like, I don't know about that, and I don't have a better idea of who should run Star Wars or what the future is. I don't know. It might still be bleak because Disney still controls all this until they get their head out of their butt and realize that it's not just about making money.
Yeah,
Then
I
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like the way Star Wars is kind of transformed into just like their biggest property instead of like a thing that people are extremely passionate about. I mean, they do still have the projects that shine, like your Andor and your Clone Wars or your Rebels or any other animated. They still have the properties that shine. And like I thought Skeleton Crew was charming. It didn't feel Star Wars enough at all. It was just kind of like a space pirate adventure with a Star Wars skin plastered on it. Um, Acolyte was another one that just came out recently, and that was okay. I know they were trying to capture the High Republic, and I guess they did a good job. But the standout for me for Acolyte wasn't the story. It was the lightsaber battles. They did a phenomenal job with the lightsaber fights, but the rest of it was kind of lackluster. Um, Even the big reveal wasn't that big of a reveal. I mean, the bad guy basically tells you who he is in episode 2. But
My problem is
yeah, that
the lack of Star Wars, like what it's known for. It's known for lightsabers and the Force, and yet the shows that are shining are The Mandalorian and Andor, which are great shows, and I want them to exist in conjunction to Jedi and Sith, and yet they seem to put those on the back burner for whatever the hell reason. I don't know why.
well,
I want
it's
more
just it's
anything
an
with a
effort
Jedi.
to show it's an effort to show the larger world. But yeah, I think there's an element of you have to know your audience as well. And like the Mandalorian is great because all the fan fiction, all the people that had Mandalorian tattoos, before Mando came out, back when it was Boba Fett and The Empire Strikes Back, all the people that had that comic lore, that novel lore, the expanded universe, all those people, they had an appreciation for those characters, and I like that they're finding ways to honor that corner of the fandom. But yeah, again, know your audience. You got to pander a little bit to the trying to
Well, it's almost like they're
and
forgetting how to do Jedi
Yeah.
and the Sith. They've been pumping
What's
the other stuff so much that when they go back to a Jedi, it's almost like they no idea what they're doing anymore. When you look at the prequels, shouldn't be better lightsaber fights, choreography. It's all just it's going backwards, and it's weird because they don't seem because the people that did the prequel choreography are available to hire, and
yeah,
yet they don't hire these people. They hire
they're
somebody
still
else
there.
that's doing these clunky, like I'm out there with my weed whacker. It's just it's
Yeah,
sad.
it's a huge difference between the lightsaber battles in the prequels, the lightsaber battles in the sequels. I don't count the original because they were George Lucas changed his mind on what a lightsaber fight should look like between the originals and the prequels. And that's fine. He's the creator, he's like, okay, we did this, but this is kind of what I
When you get with
want it to
technology
be in
limited at the
reality.
time, you couldn't do more than that
Yeah.
anyway, and that was just what it was.
But I mean, even though you go back and you look at behind the scenes for Empire or for Return of the Jedi, and you'll see that like Mark Hamill, he was no Hayden, he was no him and the coordinator. They were doing some good lightsaber fights behind the scenes. George was
Yeah,
the
I
one that
I do
said,
wonder
"Oh,
if
we're
that
not doing that."
was
But like
I do wonder
the
if they could
acolyte,
animate that though. That's the other thing. I know they could
yeah.
do it, but whether they can get the effect on it, I don't know at that time. If it was like that
Well,
fast,
the
I don't know if that was
scene
possible.
38 reimagined.
That's what I wish they
Yeah,
would do more of is that kind of stuff. Like add a real new fight into it. Actually, we need to do
that'd
that.
be that'd be great.
We need to segue into because we've been running already an hour. So what
Oh man.
what we can do? We can jump to your characters that deserve spotlights. What do you want for a future
Hmm.
show?
Okay. Yeah, hard transition. Okay, sorry, timing, people. Star Wars, we love it. Um, Shows I'd be very interested in watching. Uh, I would love to see them deliver on what they failed to do with the Acolyte, but I'd love to see it with either the Inquisitors or with Palpatine. I want to see a bad guy show that is ruthless, that makes you question things about why you like the show. I'd like to see them not so much a Game of Thrones direction, but a Game of Thrones level of violence. I want to see a maturity rating warning. I want to see the bad guys and what makes them bad. Because
Yep.
at this point, with some of the projects we're getting, with some of the books, with some of the video games, we get the whole was the Empire bad? Were space terrorists sort of thing. No, I want to see them be bad guys. I would love to see Palpatine, young Palpatine, training under Plagueis, learning the Sith, becoming stronger, culminating in him finding a young Darth Maul. I would love to see that show. I'd love to see him gain power. I'd love to see him enact his plans. I'd love to see him rise to the point where he is in Attack of the Clones, because he was. I think they've gone ahead and established and made real that he was the apprentice at the time of Phantom Menace. I want to see that happen. I would love to see a show about the Inquisitors. I think it would be an awesome opportunity for them to introduce Starkiller. Honestly, they'd have to depower him. They'd have to nerf him quite a bit because that's a character that is the Inquisitorius in his video games. But I'd love to see them base a show around him. Sam, what's his name? Who plays Darth Maul? Who plays Palpatine in Clone
Whitmer.
Wars? He is Starkiller. Yeah, he deserves his shot and in live action because he's a live action actor. He's done Being Human and things. He's had a lot of credit live action wise in TV shows. Giving him an opportunity to shine. Show me the Inquisitorius. I want to see them in their castle. One of the things that Kenobi did well was set up the mystery of their trophy hall. Let me see them filling up their trophy hall. Maybe you can sprinkle in like this Jedi from Order 66 survived. Let's see Starkiller go up against Quinlan Voss. Let's see Starkiller come across Asaz Ventress, who we know survives because of the Bad Batch. That would be a great show. I know the argument can be made that the entire first 6 films are a Darth Vader story, but I would love to see Darth Vader between when we left him in episode 3 and when we see him again in Kenobi, that 10 years where he's establishing himself. I would love to see that. I want to see him train. It'd even be acceptable for because he's the boss of the Inquisitors. They answered to him and to the Emperor. They did an Inquisitor show. every single one of those Inquisitors gets mutilated by Darth Vader some way, shape, or form. I'd like to see him train them and hold them not up to par. That'd be so perfect.
Yep.
My gold mine, and I don't know if I'd want a TV show so much as I want a video game trilogy of it, because especially with the Jedi series, you know what I'm going to say. I want Luke, but I don't want them to ruin Luke. I want to see Luke between Revenge of the or Return of the Jedi, and I want to see Luke between then, and I want to see him from when he falls off the grid in Episode 7 or with Ben. I want to see him going through Jedi temples and reclaiming them or purging the dark spirits that the Emperor corrupted it with. I want to see him raiding Imperial vaults. I want to see him leading rebellion platoons or flying his X-wing or something like that. I'd love to play him, but I just want more Luke story. There's so much more that can be told there. Luke, Ahsoka is your favorite character. Darth Vader is your favorite character. Luke is my favorite character. I want more Luke. So
I want to
those would
see
be
Luke. I want to see the potential, and I want to see it because all of it is speculation on what he does, but we've never seen anything. And a lot of it's like
yeah.
retcon. You have a lot of legend stuff, but none of it's you won't really see him do anything
Yeah.
that's an amazing feat. And I want to watch that. I want to watch that
And
awesomeness and get it on film.
one of the cool things they did with Ahsoka, one of the things they wanted to do, saying we're not making things up, pulling things in from the expanded universe. Enter Thrawn. Say what you will about the actor that's playing him, they gave us Thrawn. We got to see the Chimera. We're getting Night Troopers. With the Night Sisters are back. We get to see that in the next season. That's awesome. I would like to see a version of Luke that gets to interact with Mara Jade. Like, we know they don't get married, they don't have kids. We're not getting the expanded universe version of Luke who can basically tell a black hole to go f itself. I know we're not going to see that, but like we can
You
see those
could.
elements.
You could retcon the whole.
Maybe
You could write down those movies easily. I don't think
you
anybody would have a
could. They won't,
complaint.
but you could. No, yeah, you could. They won't, but you definitely could. But I would love to see those elements for Luke. I'd love to see him interact with some kind of race there. And an Heir of the Empire series would be fantastic. That would be cool. But I think because they have him, it would be a damn shame if you never brought Cal Kestis into live action. Now, I don't know how the third game's going to end. He could very well get killed off in the next video game. We don't know. But if he doesn't, I desperately want to see, because apparently there's all kinds of Jedi Order 66 survivors. I want to see Ezra, Luke, Cal, and Ahsoka all in the same room. I want to see
That'd
that.
be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, the only two things I'd really want, and I think they could do this in Ahsoka season 2. We've already talked about this, but kind of our plot for what we thought the season 1 would be. I want Ahsoka to become space cop. I want her to be, and I want that to open up multiverse stuff where you could have Luke and Mara Jade, and you could have different timelines of same characters where things went differently, and have this whole portal jumping thing, and she's in charge of it. Make her the grand master of the
Yeah.
portal realm, and then here she can be like jumping through these timelines, and we could see different characters that maybe had a different situation work out and interact in ways that maybe we don't expect, and have a whole thing like that. I think that could be cool and lead to a lot of different
Yeah.
like you could have a what if timeline within her show, and it would be separate from everything else, but yet she's grounded to the main story still. So it's like you're grounded but not, and then you could do your whole what if spiel on what if Vader didn't get burned up, and she could go back to that timeline and jump right out at that point and fight whatever that version of Vader, and Obi-Wan can whatever. You could have a whole list of possibilities. And I think the other one would be I want a Yoda show in High Republic era. I want that
Oh, that'd be
era
cool.
because then you can
That'd
see
be
him
really
when
cool.
he's like, even if he's a couple hundred years old, you get to see him at his
Oh, yeah.
prime. And then you could also see what that whole area. And then I think they could open up to his story more, where maybe why he ran things the way he did, because maybe there was an issue during the High Republic era that something went sideways, and they were maybe a little more, I don't know, lax or something else happened. Like the way they ran the order was wrong, and he felt the need to run it a certain way, even if it ended up being the downfall. But I don't know. There's a whole thing you could do to story. And he has so many 800 years of history that there's so much stuff you could see within any of his timeline that you could make really cool stuff out
Yeah,
of for considering how long he's been alive. So I'd like that show.
I would. While you were kind of talking about that, that kind of sparked some ideas, and like I would love to see Revan come into real life. I'd love to see Revan,
That would
and
be cool.
more than that, even to give Star Wars kind of a fresh face, I say take it
Old Republic.
all the way back to the formation of the Old Republic, and I would love to see
I think we long
just
said that. We said
com-
that when they were
like
rebooting, like just get rid of, go
like
back. Yeah.
not 150 years, not 200 years, not 300, not within Yoda's lifetime. I want to see like 1,000 years ago can even implement a different chosen one or a prophecy. Like I want to see before the Skywalker saga was even 1,000 years from being relevant. You know, when the galaxy was shaped differently.
There's so
I
many
would
cool
love to see
characters
them.
in the Old Republic. You have
They
Kreia.
could do.
She's Darth.
Oh
Darth.
yeah,
Treya. She's so cool.
you could do. Yeah, I mean, and the books are there. You've got. I know they're extended universe, but the books are there. You can pull from that source material. Hell, you can make anything up that you wanted. You can explain why things aren't wireless in space travel, but you can do whatever
Yeah.
you wanted if you just jumped back that far. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
We won't get any of this,
so
but
video games. No,
video
we won't.
games.
So video games. Why do you think they are doing re-releases and remasters for games like Jedi Power and the original EA Lucasfilm or LucasArts Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, classic Battlefront? Why do you think they're doing re-releases of these and a new version of the Skywalker saga in Lego in 3 years, and they're not focusing on Battlefront 3? Why do you think they're doing that?
Why for the old remasters is just because it's easy money, and that's just like that Embracer group or whoever's doing that. I can't remember who's doing those remasters, but
Do
that's
you
just
think
easy
that's all it
cash
is?
grab.
It's just
I think it's
easy
just an easy
money?
cash grab. Because that's a different company doing those. I can't remember if it is Embracer Group or who is doing those things, but that's not EA. But as of why the Battlefront 3, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Even if you could, because they could easily make the cash shop workable and make it fair enough that people wouldn't
Hmm.
complain. I don't understand why it hasn't happened. The demand is there. I don't know if they don't see it, or I honestly don't have an answer for you because it seems like an easy layup for money.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like I can understand DICE not wanting to pursue it because of the backlash they hit on the micro transgressions.
We're
uh,
sticking with that.
yeah, we're sticking with it. It's not going anywhere. Microtransgressions. Now I can see why that one company wouldn't want to move forward, but given the backlash they've got about the canceled games, given the backlash they've got about Star Wars Outlaws, and
I
really
guess
their
I
only
didn't think
property
about
that's
this.
succeeding
The real
is
reason might
Jedi.
be this just came to me now. The real reason EA might not want to do it is because of the licensing fee. I've heard that Disney takes a huge chunk, and I don't know if it's 50% or slightly less, but I could be off base. But I'm pretty sure the licensing fee that they charge is exorbitant, and I don't know if it'd be worth it at that point, which might be the real, because all the other IPs they own themselves, so they're not doing licensing fees. But I think that could be part of it, and I know they don't have the exclusive rights anymore, so they'd have to pay some sort of licensing fee, and whether Disney would just charge out the ass for that, I don't know. That might be the honestly the easy reason why it might not be dollars and cents worth it, but the demand I think is sure there. I can't see why they wouldn't, or why somebody else wouldn't pursue maybe not a Battlefront, but something akin to it. But other maybe just Disney is just we want all the money. Might be as
It's
simple
really
as that.
interesting. It's really, really interesting because you have the Jedi series that does well, and then you have the X-Wing pilot series that doesn't do well, and you have Outlaws, which is somewhere in the middle,
Why don't you
and then
think
you've got the can.
X-wing games don't do well? Because they did at one time. But I kind of fall into that same umbrella where I loved them as a kid, but I don't love them now.
Yeah,
I don't love flying
I
games in
love like
general, and I don't know
the pod
why.
racer games and the flight
Yeah,
games. They used to be great, and I remember loving space combat in the original Battlefield games. I don't know why. Maybe they're not fast paced enough. Maybe people don't have patience enough. Maybe people are just
could be that.
worse
And
at
I think part of it is
flight
just
controls
imagination
now.
as a kid. Like you're just kind of I'm flying in the movie, but that wasn't really. It wasn't about the game. It was just about the imagination aspect. I don't know, but I just don't. It seems like they get better and better those types of games, but the people don't seem to love them, and I just kind of feel like
Yeah,
that's an
it
overall
it
shift.
doesn't make doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they are
Maybe it is
not
a
moving
detention
forward
span
with
thing,
that.
like you said. Maybe it's just a we're not doing things fast enough. Got to shoot.
Maybe
Got to
it's
shoot
lazy.
now.
Maybe maybe players and makers are lazy in general. I don't
Maybe we
like
don't need another
Battlefront
game though. The mods support and right now for 2, I think
mod support only
that could take a
works
life of its
on
own. And PC, granted,
it
yes.
has. It has, but you exclude your console players when you do that. But
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me because Battlefield 1, I remember you, Em, and I, man, we played that game. We almost never got tired of it. Like we took a day off here and there, but we played that game relentless. Battlefront 2 doubled down, and that game was great. And they introduced a story campaign, and the story campaign was canon. And they Iden Versio, her story was I love Iden. She's such a great character, and I love how she plays into it. And I like the planets you go to in that main story.
I thought it was a
I
little
don't know
watered
why
down,
they
but
haven't followed through.
yeah, it was okay.
Well, it was so short. It was
Yeah,
so
that was the
short.
problem. It was too
It
short.
was
It was
just
like 2 hours. You're an awesome badass stormtrooper here, Imperial stormtrooper, and
yeah.
now a few hours in, now we're a rebel. Like okay,
Yeah.
that part was a little bit too
But
fast. But other than that, I get what you're saying.
but
It could have been cool.
the way they wove your playable characters into like the way they interacted with like it made sense why you got to see Han Solo, and it gave you Han at Maz's castle, and it
Yep.
made you got a little bit of backstory there, and you got to see Leia in Theed talking about the former queen installed this EMP, which is going to save our butts. And it was just it was so well thought out for as short as it was. And it's such a gem that I feel like gets overlooked because the gameplay's not great and the story's so short, but they did such a good job with it, and I don't understand why they aren't pushing forward. The modding community alone shows the interest in a third game. People are screaming for the third game,
Hmm.
and like you've got just look go to Nexus mods, and like you've got your roster of characters right there. You've got 52 different pages for Darth Vader skins. You've got Jyn Erso, you've got Ahsoka, Asajj Ventress, you've got Plo Koon, you've got Kit Fitzgerald, you got all these different people you can choose to. You and I respect the duel, and like you can just have an
Yeah.
entire format. You don't even have to involve stormtroopers. You can have an entire game that's just like almost a Mortal Kombat styled Jedi game. Yeah, it doesn't. Why aren't they following through on that? If they want money, why don't they do this? We'll pay for it.
I think it's probably a lot simpler than it probably is just a licensing fee deal. But yeah, it's unfortunately it seems like something could have been there. And I will say this game had an impactful moment on history. I mean, that loot box situation changed the course of gaming as a
Oh
whole.
yeah,
So I mean, it did have that, I suppose, in a positive way because that sort of ended
it
that
really did.
whole loot box thing to
Yeah,
some degree. But yeah, it was unfortunate because I think the game did obviously lose support from EA after that point. And like you said, they did start adding. It was weird because they added some skins. They added Ray and they did the Force Awakens stuff, which was like, okay, maybe they're gonna start adding some more stuff. But then it was like, nah, we're done.
yeah. They even went as far as Last Jedi. because you got some great stuff in there too.
Yeah, and
No, they
if
went
they don't need a big
they went
team
all the
on
way to
it, yeah,
They
they could
went
have
all the way
just
through.
did
They did
some
Rise of
skins.
Skywalker.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, they could have just had like a 5-person team, just make characters and add some skins on it every once in a while. And I don't know. I feel like the game could have boosted from there. But I guess if you're not getting the loot box money, I guess they don't care. That's the thing. They operate on billions of dollars of FIFA money and look at something like Fallen Order as a failure. I mean, they just look at that as a side project to build a reputation. They don't care if it sells millions of copies. That's not nothing. That's the problem with EA as a whole. It's like they're capable of making great games if they want to. They don't feel like it. They just want that
They
Madden
just
and FIFA
don't.
money. Well, it's like it just makes so much money that it's hard to argue with them either. Because if you're looking at it from a business person perspective, it's just why would you? And I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
There's
guess.
probably it's unfortunate because I wish somebody else would make something. I don't know if EA has the can they only make Battlefront. I don't know if they. I mean, I assume they own that name, but whether somebody can make something like that and just name it something else now that the license is open, I guess somebody could theoretically, maybe.
So at the end of the day, actually before I ask you that final question, why do you think Star Wars Eclipse and their open world rumored MMO, why do you think these games didn't go forward? Do you think it is just because of a licensing? Because Eclipse came out with that cinematic and they came out swinging. And like I have to imagine that even with the high licensing fee, that game would have made money for everybody. Why do you think projects like that, like the Code Art, why do you think these projects are getting canceled? People are going to flock to these titles for the
See,
same reason they flock to the theater.
Eclipse was part of Lucasfilm, so I don't know how that works. And if I'm assuming they don't have a licensing fee in that, but as for why they got canned, I don't know. I think they're scared of, I think a lot of people are scared of Star Wars now that just don't understand the franchise and because they've seen some of the burning at the cross. And I think it's just a lack of people that love the franchise making these games that I don't know. Because it seems simple to the hardcore fans. You make what people want and they'll come. But
You build it.
it's
If you build it, they will come.
exactly, it seems simple to us. And I, they just, it seems like these executives and people who put in charge of these projects don't seem to understand the source material and they get scared by the flops and the burning at the stake if something isn't great. And the cost to make this stuff is insane. I mean, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars sometimes to make these games. And if you screw it up, you saw what happened with Concord. I mean, you could sink your whole company. So, I mean, the Wonder Woman game got canceled. It's like Warner Brothers
Yeah,
doesn't know what they're
Monolith.
doing,
Yep,
shut down the whole
Monolith
studio.
shuttered that.
So,
Well,
I don't know.
that might have partly to do with. I mean, that gets away from Star Wars, but I've heard rumor that has more to do um, DC Entertainment's vision for the scope of their universe moving forward. But yeah, you're right that they're shuttering companies because they're scared of their own product for some reason. All right, so I guess my question for you
Okay.
is it's kind of a two-part question. Do you think there is hope yet with Kathleen's departure, with their track record, with everything that's happened in the last 10 years? Do you think there's hope yet for Star Wars? And if you don't, what direction would you take it in?
I I don't I if I have to choose yes or no, I'm going to say no. I don't think there's hope as long as Disney's involved. I just until they show that they understand what they're doing across all their properties, not just Star Wars. They seem to have a consistent theme as far as whatever you want to insert wokeness, insert whatever cliche, humor, their formula seems the same for across all their properties, no matter if it's Star Wars, Marvel, Snow White. They just seem to have the same blueprint for what they want a movie to follow the beat. And until they get away from that and decide to tell original stories that I I just don't see it because I'm not sure even if they give Dave Filoni or somebody else the reins that they're going to allow them to do what they want. But if I had to choose what to do with it, I I would take it mostly animated. I don't think that's the probably I don't know if that's the most profitable way to go about it, but I think it's the best way to save the thing just because of the quality seems to be higher and you can tell a more compelling story because you can do anything in animation versus live action. And I think Star Wars maybe has reached a point where animation has got so good that the quality of story you can tell there is on par, if not higher, than live action now. And I think live actions are struggling now to keep up when maybe it used to be the other way around. But I don't know, is my question. I don't, they just track record hasn't been stellar. And just what their movies coming out now with is people aren't watching them as much. It's clear they're diminishing. And I know they're aware of that fact, and whether they how they change it is going to be interesting to see if they just let people finally be creative again and tell original stories, or they just panic and go the complete other way. I don't know. At all. Who knows? What about you?
Um, so yes, I think with her leaving, so her departure had to have come from somewhere, right? She's making too much money on easy work, crap product to just decide she's retiring. Which leads me to believe she was either low-key fired or she found another opportunity to run
Rumor is
towards
she's not
to.
retiring. She might be moved somewhere else within Disney. Whether she was forced
So
out,
so
I don't know.
I I think I think somebody is listening to the smaller YouTube channels like us. I think somebody's listening to or reading the Reddit posts, and I think the outcry over, rightfully so, shifting the blame towards her for everything that fails is finally getting to them. And I think it's either she was let go and they'll never admit to it, or she did find something else to run towards that somehow, some way is bigger than Star Wars. No idea what that could be. Really, in pop culture in 2025, what exists that's bigger than Disney Star Wars? But I think those are with her leaving is a definite potential for it to either get very, very good or very, very bad.
And I don't think we'll
I
see those
want to
returns
believe
though of her leaving until five,
no, maybe
six
not.
years
Maybe
because
it'll be immediate. Maybe John Favreau stepping up to the maybe it's
you have all
Bryce Dallas
these
Howard
shows
that
that were already in the
is doing
works,
it.
and you can only do so much with stuff that's already seventy
Well, I
percent
mean, we
done, and
see
without
we
scrapping it.
see
But
I mean, Star Wars is guilty of scrapping their own projects when they're
you
done,
need
and
stuff to
like we
come out.
saw
That's the problem too.
studios do that all the time. I mean, if you look at DC, James Gunn came on, and I mean, the movie Batgirl with Brendan Fraser was completely done, and they canned that entire movie, got rid of it. So studios will do that if they think they can get a larger road. But no, I think she was let go. I hope is they'll bring someone that's passionate about the series to come in and try to fix it. I really hope they don't do what they wanted to do, hire somebody for the sake of a diversity hire. I want them to bring someone that passionate about the series, but that's how I feel about everything. And if I could change the direction of Star Wars, the one fundamental change I would make is the people that write Star Wars, the people that basically guide Star Wars and determine what direction it goes. The best format for all Star Wars stories is the novels, the novelizations. They expand. You read the novelization of Skywalker. It's better than the movie. They add so much stuff. Kylo Ren on Mustafar talking to the weird thing.
And that's where you
There's
need to give
all
Disney
that
their
stuff.
credit. The novel side of things is
Yeah,
great. I don't know why that
bring
part is so
in
great, but they do that right.
bring in actual story writers who do their homework to write your stories, and it will succeed. So I think the attention to detail needs to be given to the continuity that's already been established. And I would change. That's what I would change. I wouldn't let every director that thinks that they're, not every director can be actor, director, writer. That's just it's not. It works for some. Not everybody's Clint Eastwood. Not everyone's Taika Waititi. That's not the case. I know everybody wants to be, but that's not
Yeah.
the thing. And so I would bring actual storytellers to come in to write your story. I would hire actors that are I mean, everybody's passionate. Moses Ingram was definitely passionate about Star Wars when she got cast as Reva, but like put her in the right spot. Write the characters intelligently. And as for live action versus animation, going back to a couple episodes, commit to something. Just if you're going to do live action and you're going to use practical effects, use practical effects. If you're going to use CGI, use CGI. That's the biggest difference between the prequels and the original trilogy is George Lucas committed. And I know that's mostly defined by the technology of the time, but it's still a commitment that was made. The prequels don't have, I mean, episode one, sure, but even then he went back and replaced Puppet Yoda with CGI Yoda.
Yep.
And it was better for it, because it all matched. So I would commit to your animation style, live action or otherwise, and bring storytellers in to tell actual stories. That people that do their homework, people that take the time to not pull a JJ Abrams like, oh, why did Rey hug Leia? We just passed her by and ran off with Finn after Han Solo died.
Yeah.
That's not good storytelling. That's lazy editing and a complete lack of attention to detail. So that would be my major change.
Yeah.
And of course, I'd want all my projects that I said earlier to go ahead and go forward.
I want all of it. Give it to
I
me.
want it all.
Unlimited power.
And more. But the number one change I'd make, Zach, the number one change is more blue milk and death sticks. More blue milk and death sticks.
Want to buy that stick?
Yeah.
All right, we need to end this shit. We're already
You gotta go. We gotta leave.
Thank
That's
you,
good. It's a good
everybody,
episode.
for watching. We've had a pretty good turnout tonight, actually.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's the first live one. I think we'll keep doing it live. But yeah, this
live is good. Well, we'll
the
see.
edited version will
I have
be
a better
Friday.
mic coming.
Yeah, we're gonna get upgrades here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
upgrades.
Till next time, guys.
Cool.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.